Welcome to another edition of Wednesday's Word with yours truly. A very special edition of Wednesday's Word because I'm going to seize this moment to promote and to make you aware of my most recent accomplishment. And if you might say, well, he's pandering for pats and likes and things, yes, I am. Okay. No shame to my game. All right. So, but before we do that, I need everyone to share, because tonight is going to be a very special edition. I'm going to give you some excerpts from my book, my award-winning book, 12 Things That Ruin Relationships, a guide to knowing when it's safe to love. I think you can see it clearly there, perhaps, maybe not. But in any case, we're going to be delving into this book here tonight. So if you are single, married, divorced, this is going to be a night for you. So if you know any singles, any married folk, any divorced people or folk, you can join them in tonight too. So share, because I'm going to get right into this. This is one of my favorite topics to discuss, this issue of relationships, because most of us think we've already got it down packed. We don't really need any consult. We don't need any advice. We've got it. We know how it goes. And in some cases, yeah, that may be true, but in a lot of cases, it's not so easy. It's not very easy to distinguish, to discern, and how to function within the context, not just a romantic relationship, but relationships in general. And because we're in the age of social media, we are less proficient in the art of engaging one another. We know how to do it behind a screen and with a keyboard, but do we know how to do it when we confront each other face to face? A whole different ball game. So we're going to deal with that a little bit tonight from my book, again, 12 Things That Ruin Relationships. It's a very easy read. As you can see, it's a very thin book because I wanted to make it easy reading, and I didn't want anyone to be discouraged by the thickness of the page or the book to think, well, that's too much reading. I'm not trying to get all scholarly about it. I just want to know how I can get along with my wife. How can I get along with my children or my coworkers, etc., etc. So we're going to deal with that a little bit tonight on tonight's show, on this particular stream, because I'm very excited about it. The book has, as you can see, it has garnered the seal of approval from the Christian Literacy what it was, CLA, Christian Literary Awards. We've got the seal of approval that it is one of the most successful books launched within their community. It's basically readers club, a book club. So they get together and they read books from around the world, and they determine which books are the best or which one seems to be more relevant and has some interesting information inside. And then they chose me. So I did go to Texas and hung out with them. I did their podcast a few weeks back, and just last week we were there. I think it was last week. Well, week before. Man, has anybody noticed that time is literally not just flying by? It's literally evaporating before our very eyes because it seems just like yesterday. I was just there for the ceremony. Speaking of ceremony, hold on. Uh, for those who couldn't make it, here is the award that I received as a recipient of the 2024 Reader's Choice Award. Yeah, I like that. I like getting awards. It's just a confirmation that we're doing something right over here. So let me take it out the box. There it is. It's got a nice little flame. If I had on dark colors behind it, you could read the words. Yeah, it says Joy and Company. That's Joy. And then there's Rose and Rosemarie. They make up Joy and Company. It says 12th Annual Christian Literary Awards. Reader's Choice in the self-help category. And Michael C. Norman, 12 Things That Ruin Relationships, a guide to knowing when it's safe to love. Now, this is a nice trophy. It's very heavy too. But this is what I'm thinking cost the more. All of the script here, that the name of the book, that's a long title. So I'm sure they had to pay some extra money for all those fonts. So anyway, I'm super excited that it's getting acclaim, it's getting notoriety, and if you have not gotten your copy, I want to encourage you to go ahead and do so because number one, it's not that expensive. Number two, it's not that big. Look how thin it is. But it's not the quantity, it's the quality. And listen, we've got some good stuff in the pages of this book, 12 Things That Ruin Relationships, a guide to knowing when it's safe to love. Now, as I said earlier, this book is written with three types of people in mind, one of which is those that are single, and then those who are married, and then those who are divorced. And anytime I begin a discussion about the book in those three categories, I always feel indebted to remind those who perhaps have suffered a divorce, who's gone through a divorce. And I say suffered because even if you win the settlement, you get all the kids, you get all of the houses and the car, the money and all of that, they're still in a divorce. There are no winners. No one can say that I won because divorce is a very painful experience. And because I come up from in a very strict classical Pentecostal holiness type of background, many people, particularly women, they almost, if they've ever been divorced, even if the husband's left them, they are considered scarlet letters, that they have no more meaning, they have no more value, that they have God's purpose for them is just completely gone. And so they live this life of self-condemnation and doubt and depression and anxiety because after all, I'm divorced and God hates divorce. Well, my news to you is that while God does hate divorce, God still loves divorcees. There is no way that you can escape let me pull this in so a little bit closer so you can hear me clearly. There is no way that you can escape the love of God. The scripture says, this is God's word, his mercies endureth forever. And while, yes, divorce is painful, it's a very painful experience. But again, it does not mean the end of your existence. It doesn't mean the end of your purpose. Your purpose is still intact. God hates divorce, but he loves divorcees. Please understand that. And I'm always, again, compelled to say that because so many people are walking around condemned, seeming like I don't have any purpose. I'm just kind of existing until the rapture happens, I guess. And I want them to know that your purpose is still intact, that God still has a purpose for your life. Okay? Now, one of the things I always feel compelled to do as well is to remind people when you start talking about relationships, whether they are romantic or platonic, you have to realize that relationships are, as number one, not a 50-50 proposition. That was Teddy Pendergrass years ago. He used to say, looking for a 50-50 love. No, if you get a 50-50 love, you are already destined for destruction. That's matter of fact, just saying that I'm giving 50% already exposes the fact that your relationship is defective, because you're only operating on 50% of the relationship. So what if your car was only operating on 50% of its capacity? I mean, you've got four wheels, but the engine doesn't work. Or you've got a great engine, but no wheels. The axles are broken, So the whole concept is that we don't come into relationships with this mentality of 50-50. You bring 50, I bring 50, because again, 50% of anything is defective. Okay? So what you want to do, you want to come into relationships fully embraced with who you are, 100% aware of who you are. Because by and large, most of the time, relationships fail because we don't really know who we are. Because when we meet for the first time, we are always putting on a good show. We put on a good front. I'm put on deodorant, got a little smell good on me. I'm talking and speaking my best language, and I'm dressing to impress. And as such, we are literally meeting our avatars. They're not us. They're just our representative. When you meet one another for the first time, it's as though you're meeting their avatar, because they're putting on the best that they can when you first meet. Only to find out, if you actually engage in a relationship, an extended one, you start to realize, wait a minute, this is not the person I met, 6 months ago, a year ago. Things are happening here. So again, one of the things I always tap down, one of these realities that I always, again, feel as though I must inform people of is this. This is important. Get this. That if you're getting into a relationship to find someone who completes you, again, that's a recipe for a great disappointment. If you're looking for someone who's going to complete you as though you are incomplete until you meet someone else, your soulmate, your significant other. What's up, doing life after 60? That's Team Scarborough. Hey, so I just took off. I'm just talking. I see you there, Marvis. Bless you, my dear. Thank you for tuning in. And for everyone else that's kind of hiding, well, you're not hiding. You're just not commenting. But I see all the chats. So if you want me to see you, say hello, okay? So I can say hi back to you. So, but in any case, if you are looking for someone who will complete you, you are looking for the wrong thing. Here's my suggestion. I always say this, that a relationship is not designed for you to find someone who completes you, but someone who complements you. You see what I'm saying? There's a big difference between finding someone who makes me feel as though I'm whole and finding someone who is whole, and they don't have to go through a lot of tricks and circles. They don't have to put on facades, because I am what I am. They're very authentic, and they're and oftentimes willing to accept who they are for what they are, who they are, where they work, how they live, how much money they make, the whole nine. They're completely satisfied with that to the extent not necessarily reaching the pinnacle of success, but they at least have a healthy self-awareness for themselves. In other words, you can't properly introduce yourself to someone until you have introduced yourself to yourself. That was one of the greatest. Don't just sleep on that one. That's big right there. What's up, Jeffrey K., my brother from another mother? God bless you, sir. But again, if you're looking for someone, again, to complete you, you're going to miss the boat, okay? So again, I am completely, thoroughly convinced that you must discover who you are first. Let that be first order of business. Before, I've got 12 chapters. I'm going to just fly through these 12 chapters and speak on each of them as much as time will allow. But this is so big. This is so pertinent that if you never have a come to Jesus meeting with yourself, then who are you going to present to others? How can you introduce yourself when you don't know yourself? So that being said, did I leave my phone on? I'm constantly beeping. That being said, if you don't know who you are, then you don't know how to introduce yourself to others. And you're presenting a facade. And anything built on deception, on false images, is destined for failure. So I want you to succeed, whether it's romantic relationships or platonic relationships. I think the biggest challenge for us all is to learn how to accept ourselves the way we are. And I'm not saying you can't improve upon yourself, but you've got to, at some level, be able to say, I'm good with the way I look. I'm good with who I am. No, I'm not the best, the highest educated. I'm not the best looking. I don't even have the skin color or the hair length or the nose size and all of the things that we point out about ourselves that we don't like. At some point, you got to be willing to say, I am that I am. In the name of the Most High, right? I am that I am. In all of my glory and all of my gore. Now, the glory is those things you've accentuated, you've maximized. But your gore are the things that need work. And so, hey, Stephanie, bless you. Stephanie Forbes, what's up? You've got to get to a place before. Here's one of the things I'd say, and I promise you I got to get into this book. But here's one of the things it was a complete revelation for me. I was taking a trip, and on the airplane, just before the flight took off, the announcer came over the intercom and said, listen, sometimes we may encounter turbulence and lose air pressure. If that happens, the mask will fall down in front of you. When it does, grab the mask, put it on yourself first, and then put it on your child. Now, I thought that was pretty much backwards. I mean, if I love my kid, I'm not trying to, if someone's got to sacrifice their life, it's got to be me, because I've lived long enough. The child, she just got here. He just got here. But I understood what they were saying, that if you're going to be any assistance to your children, you've got to first put the mask on yourself, because what will happen is you will suffer vertigo and you won't know you're up from down. You won't know left from right. You'll be completely disoriented, and then you can't help anyone. You'll be of no help to anyone, your children or anyone else's children, for that matter. So the whole idea is learn to care for yourself. I know that sounds counterintuitive, particularly if you're supposed to be Christ-like. You're supposed to be self-deprecating. You're supposed to deny yourself. But the truth of the matter, you can't be a blessing to anyone if you're running on empty. If you're on E, you've got nothing in the tank for anyone. It's kind of like, we celebrate the idea it's better to give than to receive. And it is. It is most definitely better to give than it is to receive. However, if you don't have anything to give, how can it be better for you to give? You can't give what you don't have. So the whole idea is to empower yourself, not to become self-centered, not to become self-indulgent, not to become narcissistic. And many of us, I remember this like yesterday when I discovered what a narcissist is, because, for a long time, I was trying to describe it. I knew how to talk about it, but I didn't know the language. I didn't know the definition of a narcissist until I continued studying. I picked up books. I developed a voracious appetite for reading books, self-help books, relationship books, investment books, banking books, psychology books, sociology, philosophy books, the Bible. So I read them. In the words of the great late Pastor King of the late of Mount Olive, way down down your way, Jeff. He said in his baritone voice, "Whenever you read the Bible, you've got to read broadly." That country, really robust voice. You must read broadly. Don't just read the scriptures, but you must have a Bible in one hand and a New York Times in another. So read broadly. Read everything. Even the Bible itself says, prove all things. All right. So I got to get into this. So this was the inspiration for this is because I've been married for 36 years to the same woman. So I can qualify for a bishopric because I'm the husband of one wife. So I don't need to be a bishop, but I'm already one. I got my own house. This is my domain. This is my area here with my family, my wife and kids, and that's good enough for me. But I garnered a lot of information because backstory. I married my wife. Get this, Jeff. You remember? I married Mac King Carter. That's it, Dr. Mac King Carter. You remember? So I married my wife at a very, very early age, 23 years old. And if that's not crazy enough, just at 23, just after I moved to Miami from Orlando back in 87. I left my parents' house. That's the first time I've ever lived outside of my parents' home. I've never lived in my own apartment. I've never had a dorm. I didn't go to college, so I didn't live on campus. I mean, I did go to college, but later. But the point I'm making, I've never been on my own. So I moved to Miami. I'm 23 years old. I'm in a city that I know no one except Jeff and his family and a few others. And then I meet this woman, this chance meeting. We meet at a church service and we get to, having a conversation or conversating. That's my daughter hates for me to use that word. But we started conversating or having conversation. And how about 3 months later, we were married. 3 months later. 3 months later. Jeff, why didn't you pull my coattail? So 3 months later, I'm married. And listen, I'm 23 years old, fresh out of my parents' home, my mother and father, never been on my own, never had an apartment, had nothing on my own. Here I am in a strange city, don't know anyone. I meet one woman, and 3 months later, well, I met more than one, but the one that I married. so, so the one that I married, we married 3 months later. Here's what I didn't realize. I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't have the full. Jeff said you wouldn't have listened. You are probably right. But I got married and not realizing, wait a minute, she's got 3 kids. So guess what? I'm marrying a strange woman. Not that she was crazy or cuckoo. I'm just saying someone I've never met. We're not high school sweethearts. We didn't meet in vacation Bible school. We met for the very first time. 3 months later, we're married. And not only am I marrying her, but guess what? I discovered I'm marrying her children too. So now you talking about jumped in on the deep end. I'm like, what in the world was wrong with me? Huh. So nevertheless, I took it on because I thought, I guess I thought I was Superman. I can do it. I've never been married before. I've never done, Joe, he said, you wouldn't have listened. You're probably right. So, nevertheless, I marry her and her 3 children. And all 3 of them has 3 distinct personalities. So, it's 4 against 1. I am completely, God knew. I'm glad he knew because I sure didn't know. Thanks, Stephanie. But I digress. The reason I say that is during the 36 years, I'm taking notes. There's things that are happening in the context of my marriage. And because, again, she's never been married before. I've never been married before. So it's all on the job training. Everything is on the job training. If you didn't learn it before you got in, too bad for you. You're going to have to learn it the hard way. So we went to the school of hard knocks. Had some wonderful times. Still are. We're still married 36 years later. But we had to go through some wilderness experiences. But we learned a lot along the way. And that's why this book is so valuable, because it is written in blood. And I don't mean literal blood. I'm saying my own blood, sweat, and tears. My wife, when I accepted the award here, my 12th annual, bing. Did you see that, Jeff? That's what they gave me. When I received the award, I had to tell them that this award is not just for me, but it's for my wife and it's for my children, because they all gave me the experience I needed to write the book. So it's really my wife's award as well as mine and my children. So I took a lot of notes. I'll give you one funny story. I tell this all the time. Hopefully, if you have heard it before, just pretend you've heard it. You've never heard it before. So men, here's something important. I'm working my way into this. Men are logic-based. Men are very rational and reasoning men. Men are rational creatures. Women tend to be more ethereal. They tend to be more whimsical. And so as such, my wife, she was the one who inspired me to get deeper, and because that's her first questions to me when we met. She said, "Are you walking in the fullness?" I'm like, fullness? I had lunch. She said, no. I'm talking about the fullness of God. And so she challenged me on that. But as we were growing in grace, we were growing in faith, I started asking questions. I'm like, we would have these moments of intense fellowship, which that's what we call, it's arguing. We call it intense fellowship. We would have those moments and I would be like, how is it that you are saved and I'm saved? We're supposed to be both, Christians, followers of Christ. How is it that we're having these intense fellowships, these moments of intense fellowship? And she said, that's the devil. And I'm thinking, oh, is that who it is? Okay. She said, that's the devil. I said, that's the devil, but there's only two voices screaming at the top of their lungs. I don't hear a third voice in here. She said, that's the devil. So I was like, okay, you said it's the devil. So what are we supposed to do? She said, the next time it happens, you said, Satan, I bind you. Say, devil, I bind you. So I was like, okay, I pull out my mental notepad. Next time happens, devil, I bind you. Got it. Put it in my back pocket. And sure enough, it happened again. An episode of intense fellowship. And I had the ding. I had an epiphany. I said, oh yeah, oh, I know how to deal with this. Here I go. I'm reaching in my pocket, pull out my notepad. In the middle of the intense fellowship, I belted out, devil, I bind you. And my wife looked at me, and I promise you, I saw her head turn 360 degrees on her shoulders, and it rest looking at me with eyes so condemning. She said, looked like her voice changed too. She said, who are you calling a devil? And I was like, oh my God, that didn't work. we gotta go back to the drawing board. that the whole buying the devil thing didn't work. And so these are the things that we learned along the way. You got to talk it out. You got to work it out. You've got to come together and do what the scripture says. Come, let us reason together. That being said, let me start with one of my favorite chapters, is chapter 1 in my book, 12 Things That Ruin Relationships. Chapter 1 says one of the reasons relationships fail is that they become too physical, too fast. Too physical, too fast. You got all handsy too soon. When you meet for the first time, and maybe you go out on a date, you go out and you meet, you're just starting to hang out. Don't give yourself over to physicality too soon. Because, news alert, men, when they are in love, it is not the same as when women are in love. In other words, whenever a woman loves deeply, the highest expression of her love is to give you her body. Okay, we're getting PG, right around R right now. So she's going to give you her body in sexual intimacy. And that is because you have qualified. Of course, I'm saying if you're married. But for those who have not, just be advised that her highest sign of devotion is to give you her body. Now, for a man, that's not his highest sign of devotion, because sex for a man is more about biology. It's all about sexuality is more biological than devotional. For man, sex is more biological than it is devotional. A man's devotion is proven not in having sex with a woman. That's why he can get up out of your bed, go out the front door, go next door to your neighbor's house, and go in and sleep with your girlfriend next door and feel nothing about it, because that's not his highest expression of love. A man's highest expression of love is when he opens his mind, his thoughts to you. That's when you can rest assured that you're making inroads into the heart of a man. Some say the way to a man's heart is through his belly. Well, that might be true. My wife did make she did make me a dinner plate, so could be true. So, but the point I'm making is, don't deceive yourself, ladies, into thinking, oh, he loves me. I gave him my body. How could he do me this way? I thought he loved me. Because Having intercourse is not a man's sign of devotion. It's more biological. It's more of a release than it is anything else. So don't deceive yourself. And I might back up and say this too, that the whole concept of romance, we've literally built it on a fallacy. We've built it off of fanciful fairy tales and fables of the past. You know, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Rapunzel, and all of the favorite fairy tales. We've made women to feel that this is starting at a young age. We're telling them that you're not significant until Prince Charming comes your way. Now, just like Cinderella, she was a vagabond basically, left out. Her stepmother, you know the story. They all went to the ball that night, left her home because she's a stepchild, so we're not going to promote you. You stay home and wash the floors and mop and clean the house. And you know how the story goes. She ends up she meets her fairy godmother, dresses her up. She goes to the party. She meets the dashing prince. But the clock strikes midnight. She has to turn and run away and get back to the house before she loses all of the glitz and glamour that she had on. And you know the story. The prince, she left a shoe behind. The prince finds her, and then they meet, and they live happily ever after. Sleeping Beauty, the same way. She's sleeping, and she will not awaken until a prince comes along, kisses her, and she will arise out of her slumber. And so psychologically, subliminally, we're telling women that you don't matter unless and until you meet someone of significance to you, your Prince Charming. Every woman thinks that there's a man out there for them. But I hate to be the bearer of bad news. But statistically speaking, there are about 7 women to every 1 man. For every 1 man, there are 7 to 10 women per man. So for every 1 man, there are 7 to 10 women. So that means if a brother goes to church, there's at least 10 more women believing that that's their husband. And don't let them go to the altar and get saved. 10 are already making out their wedding invitations as a result. They're already planning who they're going to invite, what their children are going to look like, how many children they're going to have. But unbeknownst to them, there are 9 others saying the same thing. So there's no way. But because we've commodified romance, we've commercialized romance so that we make you feel as though you are missing something or missing out if you don't have a romantic relationship. And the truth of the matter, that is not the history, particularly of the African culture. Marriage was all about families coming together to garner real estate, to protect their property, to protect their belongings, to garner and combine their resources together to build something. It was never about, oh, he makes my heart pitter patter, my hands get all sweaty, my throat just gets so dry. I mean, that's not signs of love. That could be a sign of a heart attack. You might need a paramedic, not a man. You may need a paramedic. So all I'm saying to you is we've been sold this. It's been commercialized. It's been capitalized. So you've got every kiss begins with, the rest. And so psychologically and subliminally, we're telling particularly women that you don't matter until you have a Prince Charming. And I'm saying you should be your own Prince Charming. Buy yourself. If a man can't buy you a ring, buy your own ring. Buy your own car. Buy your own roses. If you like roses, go out and buy them. Don't just wait until some man gets them and bring. If you like roses, if you like daffodils, if you like lilies, go out and buy them. But we kind of bought hook, line, and sinker into this idea that there's a man for every woman and a woman for every man. Not so. Not so. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So if you're waiting for a man before you feel like your life matters, that you count, you just might be waiting quite a while. And what are you going to do in the meantime? In the meantime, find out yourself. You might find out that you enjoy being without. I promise you. There are those who literally do not look forward to getting married to anyone because they are so enthralled with their freedom and liberty that they have. And, of course, because of church, we make people, you can't have any children until you get married because you're not supposed to have any sex until you get married. And so that's that other mounting pressure that I would love to have children, but I can't have them unless I get married. But I can't get married because there's 9 other women trying to get the one man that I'm trying to get. Somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose. So you got a 1%, 10%, my bad, 10% chance of coming into a relationship, a significant one that leads to marriage. So I think you have to have this very difficult conversation with yourself to say, you know what? It may be that I will never get married. And I ought to be good with that. You say, well, I want children. Maybe, yeah, I'm a pastor, so I can't advise you to go on out and have children with whoever you want to. But adoption it's available. There are options for you. If you have to have a child to feel complete, then that's an option. It's a very viable one at that. A very needed one too. All right. So too physical, too fast. Don't get into the physicality before you get into the mentality. Number 2 is chapter 2 is unchecked emotions and baggage. Oftentimes we talk about new relationships as though they're brand new, but what they are they're literally sequels. They are sequels to the past relationships, because what happens is most of us can't get past what the ex did to us. So we treat the next like the ex. And so until we deal with all of the baggages, the pain, the hurt, the disappointment, and all of the things that came with that, all that baggage, until you've dealt with that and become whole or healed from whatever damaging effect it may have brought with it, don't go to the next, because you're going to treat the next like the ex. Enough said, right? All right. Number 3, chapter 3, dishonesty and deception. Nothing will work based on dishonesty. Deception, please. I don't even have to explain that. Number 4, jealousy. Now, I've got another chapter that talks about value. So, but suffice it to say, if husbands or wives don't know how to discern one another, if you don't understand one another, as a matter of fact, where was it? I thought I had it in my notes at one time. Yeah, 1 Peter talks about husband, dwell with your wives according to knowledge. If you don't have knowledge concerning that wife or that woman in general, if you don't have knowledge about their idiosyncrasies, what makes a woman, if you don't know that, then you will view her not as an ally, but an enemy. because a woman has a thing we call woman's intuition. Everyone has it. Women tend to use it more than men. Men tend to ignore it. We won't receive, we're from Missouri, show me, prove it, blah, blah, blah. Women already, they don't have to have any evidence. That's why when she comes to you concerning issues in your marriage or in your relationships and you don't have any proof of it, if she walks into your office and she says, watch that girl right there, she's trying to get you. And you're like, what? This girl, she barely even looks at me. Every morning I come in and I walk by her, she barely looks my way. That woman knows. And next thing you know, you keep minimizing, marginalizing. You're just too jealous. You're just blah, blah, blah. You're too insecure, blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, sometime later, you're in a relationship with that very same person. You could have avoided it if you had listened to the woman. So there's some reality that women know things without any proof, without any evidence, without any, facts to back it up. But you better know when she's talking from her spirit, from her intuition, and talking from her emotion, because they come from two different places. All right, moving on. That's chapter 4, jealousy. Number 5, unrealistic expectations. The whole sense of you expect a man or your prospective husband to be a certain way. Well, if you've never had a conversation, you're basically going on assumption. And you know what happens to people who live based on assumption? They make an assumption of themselves. So every relationship should start off with a conversation about vision, about goals, aspiration. Not, girl, you look good, trying to get those digits so I can get, you know what I'm talking about. It should always begin cerebral before it becomes sexual. Because if you get it backwards and it becomes sexual, it will impede the ability for it to become cerebral, because you put the cart before the horse. I told my daughters years ago, I told them, I heard this wise saying. It goes like this, and I'm not hating on men because I'm one too. But you got to understand the tendency of men and the tendency of women, the proclivities of men and the proclivities of women. So I told my daughters years ago, before they even could think about dating, I told them, never accept a man just as he is, because it will become self-evident that you settled too soon. Never accept a man as he is. It will become self-evident that you settled too soon. Now, what do I mean by that? Here's what I mean. Men have to have a goal. They have to have aspiration, because that's what causes them to develop drive and ambition. But if a woman comes along, and because a woman tends to be more nurturing, she's more nurturing and coddling, and trust me, I've never seen a generation where more women are driving cars with a brother sitting in the passenger side with his feet up on the dashboard. But then I come from a different generation. The point I'm making is, if you interrupt his maturation process, he will be robbed of his ambition, because everything he thought he wanted, guess who went out and got it for him? You did. Everything that he thought he wanted, baby, I'll get whatever you want. And there's nothing wrong with buying things for your man. There's nothing wrong with that, but you better be careful. Because if he's young, He has not, like I was 23 years old. I wasn't even done maturing. I didn't even know who I was at 23 years of age. So if you interrupt the maturation process, if you impede their progress, where, babe, you don't have to work that hard, I'll take care of that for you. Now, that sounds romantic, but what you're doing is slowly causing his self-worth and his drive to seep out. And next thing you know, now you're here a couple of years later in a relationship or a marriage, and now you can't get him to do anything because you've coddled him, because you've done everything for him. You've nurtured him as though he is your baby rather than your significant other. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. All right, moving right along. That's chapter 5. Unrealistic expectation. Know what you're getting into. Number 6 is really my history, because it's chapter 6 is too religious. Now, I have to say that religion played a very detrimental part in my upbringing. Now, I still go to church. I'm a pastor. I still love the church, love church goers, love the people in the church. But there are those who think that having church is more important than having families. What do I mean by that? When your church activity supersedes your parental activities, your marital activities, you are on your way to either one, somebody is going to have an affair. Somebody's going to become an adulterer. Or, number 2, your marriage is just going to fail completely. Because I grew up in a culture where the church was the top priority. I knew women who would leave their husbands at home. He would try to, baby, stay home with me and watch a movie with me. Like, we're in revival. That's the devil. You're trying to keep me from going to the house of God. The devil is a lie. Well, pretty soon you keep on saying that, and pretty soon you'll find somebody else in that couch taking your place. You can complain about he's just an old dirty little alley cat, but guess what? There's always somebody on the other end of that alley saying, "Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty." So you better be careful of how you disrespect your man, because you're on your way to God's house. Let me tell you something. Most of us in that kind of mindset are already committing adultery, because we're married to God's bride. The church is the bride of Christ, not your bride. Okay? So you need to focus on your bride, and God will focus on his bride. Okay. Hey, Jana. Thank you for that. Yeah. So some marriages are already suffering from adultery, because their spouse is more committed to the pastor of their church. And listen, ladies, don't you ever go to your husband and tell him, well, my pastor's told me you should do this. Don't do it. Don't do it. That's the worst thing that you can do, because by your being more committed to the church than you are to your own husband and to your own children, you're already causing all kinds of weird thoughts to come into your spouse's mind where it concerns the church. And next thing you know, he's jealous because he thinks you and the pastor are in a relationship because you're more committed to what the pastor says than what your own husband says, just because he doesn't go to church. News alert. Just because a person doesn't go to church does not mean that they are ignorant. As a matter of fact, just because people go to church doesn't mean that they're intelligent either. Because there are some ignorant folks going to church every Sunday. Ignorant. moving right along. Where was I? Oh, too religious. Chapter 7. Lack of respect. This is what'd you say? Jana says, especially if your spouse not as spiritual, strong as you, it will turn them away. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. If you're more spiritual than your spouse, the Bible says that you can win over your spouse by the way you conduct yourself, not by the revivals that you try to drag him to. Trying to drag your husband to revival. There's a man of God, and most likely it's a man of God. So in the mind of a man, why are you trying to get me to go see a man that you're crazy about at the church? You're supposed to be married to me. But you're more enamored with the reverend, with the apostle. Okay, word to the wise. Chapter 7, lack of respect. I got to finish with this. Maybe I can. Yeah. All right, so I'll stop with 7, and then we'll pick up next week. I'll give you the rest of it. Chapter 7, lack of respect. Woo, that's a big one. So in Ephesians, the Bible says, husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church. Ephesians 5th chapter. Husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. Now, then he turns around and says, women or wife, see to it that you respect your husband. Now, why does he tell the man to love the wife and then tells the wife to respect the husband? The reason that is because he's telling them both to do something that's unnatural for them. It's unnatural for a man to love. A man is a hunter. He hunts down. He preys. Not P-R-A-Y, P-R-E-Y. He looks for prey. He's a conqueror. So when God comes to him, he says, I want you to put down your conquering and dominating ways and begin to serve. Because if you want to be great in the eyesight of God, you have to be a servant. And that is not intrinsically a part of the male dominating personality. And for the woman, remember, this goes all the way back to the garden. He says that your woman, because you've done this, your desire will be for your husband. Every woman, I know this sounds kooky maybe, but every woman thinks that they can do the job better than a man. If you quietly ask, my husband doesn't know what he's doing. I can do it better, but I can't criticize him because he's sensitive. He gets mad and bent out of shape, and it'll take 3 weeks to recover from the argument. It's better to just not say anything at all. Because again, this goes all the way back to Scripture. That's why God tells a woman, reverence and respect your husband, because there's a good possibility that you're smarter than he is. Sorry, brothers. So you have to temper your intelligence with meekness and humble yourself to be at the level. Not saying all men are ignorant. I'm just simply saying that these are the dynamics that God calls into play. Husband, do what's unnatural for you. That is to love your wife and give yourself for her. And wife, make sure you do what's unnatural for you. Instead of dominating him or looking for an opportunity to take over, submit yourself to him. So if you're busy submitting to one another, there won't be any room for the Lucifer to come in, is what I'm saying. Okay? You get it? If you got it, somebody put something in the chat and say, Pastor Mike, I got it. I'm picking up what you're putting down. It's making sense to me. Where were you before I got married? Get your copy. Get your copy. It's available right now. All you got to do is go to Amazon.com order your copy of 12 Things That Ruin Relationship. Now, if you really want your autographed copy of the book, well, for a donation of, I would say, because you have to include shipping and handling, but if for a donation of $50 or more to Michael Norman Ministries, we will send you a autographed copy. You don't have to go to Amazon. If you donate by going to Michael Norman Ministries, or you can, where is Lord Jesus? There it is. If you sow a seed of $50 or more to Michael Norman Ministry, you can go to Cash App at $MNMinistries or PayPal at Michael Norman Ministries, and use that Gmail account. You can go to Zelle at MCN Productions at Gmail. Now, when you do give that $50 or more seed, make sure you put in the note, send me an autographed copy of the book. I'll know what book you're talking about, or you can just put the full name of the book, and we'll get that out to you ASAP, okay? That's how we'll do it. If you want an autographed copy, I'll be happy to do so, but for $50 or more to the ministry to help us continue to do the work of ministry, we will send you a autographed copy personally to you. That's my promise to you. All right, well, I'm completely out of time. Did you guys get anything out of this? I see Doing Life After 60 says they've got it. What about the rest of you guys? Is it making sense? Should I come back or should I drop it and move on to something else? Should I come back next week and give you the other 6? 6? Yeah, 6 or the 5. My bad. My math is. All right. Okay. So Jana says, very good. So that means come back next week. We'll do it again and give you the rest of 12 Things That Ruin Relationship, a guide to knowing when it's safe to love. And I enjoy teaching this because, again, wow. So something happened there that I lost my microphone. So, but again, we'll be back next week, and I'll finish up 12 Things That Ruin Relationships. I believe it'll be a major, major blessing to you. There's so much more to tell you, and time has escaped me. But again, if you want your own copy, you can go to Amazon.com, order it there. But if you want an autographed copy for a donation to the Michael Norman Ministries, if you donate to the ministry, $50 or more to the ministry, what we will do is we will send you an autographed copy of the book, and we'll make sure that you get it. Okay? All right. That's it for me. Somehow my other microphone started failing. So that means it's time to go. All right. So until next week, this is Pastor Mike saying, oh, don't forget, you've got to join me. If you're in Orlando, please. Oh, I got two more announcements. One of which is we've completed the algorithm of wealth. This is a very powerful workshop that we did a couple of weekends ago, how to attract money. We're going to show you how to attract money. We're going to show you how to show you the spirit of increase, how to develop the spirit of increase, how to create generational wealth. And listen, I'm not just speaking hyperbole. I'm giving you quantifiable evidence on how you can do it yourself. I promise you, you'll be amazed at how the not easy, I won't say easy, but there are methods that has been available for generations that we didn't know about. No one ever told us about it, and so we didn't know. We don't know what we don't know, right? So go to MichaelNormanMinistries.com, order your copy of The Algorithm of Wealth. And of course, if you're in the Orlando area this Sunday, 9 a.m., 2160 North Hiawassee Road, that's the place to be. Sunday mornings, 9 a.m., right here in Orlando. I'll look forward to seeing you there. Make sure you bring a friend with you, okay? That's all I've got for tonight. Again, go to Amazon.com, get your copy of The Algorithm of Wealth, and of course 12 things that ruin relationships. It'll be a blessing to you. Again, if you want an autographed copy, simply send your seed of $50 or more, and we will send it right to you, postage paid. Okay, till next time, blessing.